Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the podcast. And today we have Ryan Dumont, who is an expert in helping individuals overcome everything from OCD and anxiety through his upcoming book, Your Brain Will Succeed. So we're going to learn about how he does this and so much more today. So Ryan, welcome.
Thank you, Byron, for having me on. I love your podcast.
Oh, I'm glad you love it. You know, there's people who love it from all walks of the earth here. So how did you get into this journey to write a book and doing everything that you're doing?
Well, honestly, it kind of came out of nowhere. I graduated college. I graduated with a criminal justice degree. I worked for Homeland Security. But I was struggling with something, and there was different diagnoses as to what condition I might have, what type of mental illness I might have. And so over time, the doctor that I was seeing said, oh, you need to go to seek treatment by specialists, right? So I decided within my doctor to attend McLean's Hospital, which is world-renowned in the psychiatric realm. And it was there where I really struggled at first. And I came to a point where I had two options. I could allow my disorder, my OCD, to overtake me, or I could dig deep, right, and try to have like the willpower to really get myself out of the hole, break free of the hold that anxiety had on me. And it was that choice that led to me creating a new way to treat OCD, and more importantly, creating a company that we feel like really can create an impact.
Oh, that's excellent. So what was it that really got you starting to think there has to be a better way of treating this than what they were doing?
Yeah. Well, what I realized is when I was seeking treatment is that everything in psychology is a very soft science, right? And so the biggest thing with treatment is they have all these treatments like CBT, DBT, ERP, but there's really no specifics. Everything's subjective, right? It's up to you to figure out how you're going to get better with these terms that have definitions and maybe one example. But no one's really been able to use multiple treatment plans and techniques together in unison to actually create a road to recovery. And that's what I feel like I've done.
That's interesting. So in that process, what made you just have this aha moment? Like, hasn't anyone ever thought about putting these things together?
Yeah, well, what happened was when I was there, I picked up on a few things that a few doctors and them talked about, and I just kind of followed my intuition, and kind of journaled. I would keep track of all my thoughts, actions, and reactions, and I figured out that, okay, well, this works for me, okay, and then I kept being aware, self-reflect, and then try to implement certain things with myself. And so I started writing journal entries, which end up coming into my book, right? And so when I showed these journal entries to the doctors, they were blown away. They were like, wow, we've never thought of it in this way, in this depth, where you can actually get yourself better. You're your own best therapist. And that was kind of what the doctors were saying. They were like, one of the doctors said to me that, Ryan, see, we've taught you something, and now you have taught us something. And to me, that was like huge, because here I am, a patient in a mental place, and I'm now teaching a doctor something,
Well, it's only logical, because if you think about the typical Westernized medicine process, that it's really, I don't want to say nothing but more than a series of opinions about a lot of diagnoses. But if you think about, if you go to different doctors And if someone says, oh, you need a second opinion, well, that's what you're getting. You're getting this doctor's opinion and this one and this one. And all the training is just historical based on how it's done versus if you think about how it's all done, like a disease-based model of here's a problem, here's a solution. Oh, you have a headache, take an aspirin or whatever it's going to be, versus looking at how do you start figuring out what's the cause of the problem, what are the triggers behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, you know, the criminal justice system or like I said, in mental health, it needs to evolve, right? As our society evolves, as problems come together, right? We need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to come up with solutions like we do in many other industries to really help people, you know?
It's true, Liv. So much has to begin taking place in order for growth to happen. Because if you look at it, think about how many industries in the world that haven't really changed, and you look at what ultimately happened to them. I think a great example is Uber. You think about the taxi industry. Essentially, since the invention of the automobile, it was the same thing for practically 100 years.
Exactly. Yep. Oh yeah. No, I agree. And so here's where the story gets kind of crazy. So when I came up with this approach, I showed the doctors, and I said, okay, well, let me try to do something with this, you know. So my first idea was to create this book. So I started writing the book, and I kept showing the doctors, and they were like, wow, this is really good. Like, I think this really will help people, right? So before I got better, I was worse. I lost all my hand-eye coordination. I literally couldn't sleep. My body temperature would go all over the place. I didn't know what to do. But eventually, like I said, I started working on it and I got better. And when I was at the hospital, I met this guy named David Stern, right? And one day I'm talking to him and he says, okay, my son's going to be on Shark Tank, right? And I'm like, no way, right? So I go home with my family, I watch Shark Tank, and I watch him strike a deal with Mark Cuban, right? So the next day I come in and I'm like, David, oh my gosh, like your son won Shark Tank with Mark Cuban. And I was just ecstatic, right? Because I was happy for him, but I was also happy for myself because it's something that you don't see very often. Nothing really personal to like a show like that. And so what happened was I left, right? I left the hospital, but what happened was I wanted to keep in touch with David because I wanted to be able to see how he was doing, how his son was doing, you know? So when I was leaving the hospital, I looked him dead in the eyes and I said, hey, listen, David, you know, hang in there because your son really needs you and he's going to do something special and he definitely wants you to be a part of that journey. And so when I left, one day I was working and I thought, Ben, Shark Tank, right? So this whole process, I was trying to see how it could help other people, right? And so this is so random, Byron, but what I did was I cold emailed Ben, right? And I explained what I was doing, how I knew his dad. And I had asked him, hey, Ben, do you want to help me with this project? Do you want to be, you know, help out? And one thing led to another. And he's now been my business partner. And we've got to travel around the country and slowly start working on creating a book and a treatment plan that are really going to help people.
Oh, that's awesome. And it just shows you that you never know what can come from a chance meeting with somebody.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you think about how many times someone thinks, oh, who's that person? Oh, I don't need to start to kick up a conversation. But you never know who that person knows or who they're connected with and the possible futures that can be created because of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just that it's a natural thing. So as you develop this treatment process, how long did it take you before you really started feeling better from it?
Well, when I was in the hospital, like a lot of people who have OCD or anxiety that might be listening, that, you know, when you're struck with really bad anxiety, these intrusive thoughts or these obsessions about germs or whatever you may have, there's a lot of different types of OCD. Whenever you start to feel some relief you try, for me at least, I kept sticking to like kind of the treatment plan, like my approach, right? And because I started to build up my self-confidence, I would say I kind of had a couple positive experiences and I kept rolling with it. So I would say probably about 3 or 4 weeks after I got out of the hospital, I started to feel better, right? And I really took every day one day at a time. I took the good with the bad, and I realized that the good and bad days are one and the same if you learn from them.
Well, they are ultimately, because it's all about how you reflect upon it. Because I think where people tend to go wrong when they look at this, like for example, we record the podcast on Mondays, and how many people wake up thinking, "Ah, crap, it's Monday," and they program their mind for that type of negativity versus, all right, it's another day to make a difference. It's all about that perspective.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I mean, here's the thing. I think the difference in being successful and failing in something is realizing that you can learn from your successes and failures. But they have that saying, like, those who say they can and those who say they can't are usually right. And I do think that's really true, because I feel like if you follow something you're passionate about, like I know, Byron, you help out people with business, and also you have this podcast, and people really like to follow this. It's a passion for you, and the same thing for me. Once you have that passion, right, and that energy, it's easy to follow. So
It really is. And when you look at that perspective of what you just said of whether you're going to believe you're going to win or you're going to lose, it's all there. But here's something what people don't think about in terms of how you learn from them. People in society, we have this, if you look at how things are presented, you see the success stories that people have, like, oh my gosh, they just did this amazing thing, the person ran this marathon or whatever this amazing achievement is, but that's all that's ever talked about.
Exactly.
And there's nothing ever mentioned of, here's the journey they went on. You think, like, music acts, like, you think of how many, these celebrity artists, the ones that are headlining, big tours of people think this is incredible.
Yeah.
But you don't hear the stories of, the late nights where they're living out of a van going from one show to the next, where they're eating ramen noodles twice a day because that's all they have. You don't hear about that.
Exactly. And yeah, I agree with that 100%. I feel like, success isn't made overnight, but I really feel like, being able to, really get to know about these people that have been successful, right? And being able to, like, actually see, okay, wow, this is what they're doing, this is where they are, right? But, they were at where I am at, right? And you look at their example and you say, okay, well, now how did they deal with this situation in their life, and how can I learn from them and apply it to my own life? And I think that's where people can actually learn from people who have been successful.
Oh, exactly. And it's a necessity, because you think of the troubles people are having. If they're only focused in on the successes, it creates this false sense of reality. Like, oh, well, all you have to do are these 5 things and suddenly you're going to have success. Well, no. And when they fail, people can't relate to it. It's like, I don't understand why this is not working. I'm doing these 5 things that Guru said I'm supposed to do.
Exactly.
And realizing that, yes, those are the 5 things now, but here's the rest of the formula, the 2,000 other things you had to figure out along the way.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I think it comes down to is being able to find what you're passionate about, because that's where really you're always you're curious, right? And being curious, um, allows you to, kind of delve into being creative, and one thing leads to the next. And having that passion, I think, and having that mentality that, okay, I'm going to get there. It's going to suck, but I'm going to learn from different things. And, I think that's something that is huge, following your passion.
Oh, it is. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. That's one of those tenets of business I like to talk about, is that there's too many people in the world. They're going through the motions and they're unhappy because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. That they might be doing a business because they're in it only for the money. Like, well, I make great money at this, but they're miserable every day when they wake up. They're miserable when they get home. They're miserable around their family and friends, and they're not enjoying life. Versus that person that's excited they're waking up. Well, they're still making great money, but they're excited about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And it changes everything.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Because you think about how people are dealing with anxiety. So much of it can be caused by people that are not doing something they're enjoying. Because you think about it. If people are experiencing high level anxiety, there's usually something about it which is causing undue stress. Yeah. So if someone's entire working life is something that stresses the crap out of them, why are they doing it?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, I think that, anxiety is tough, right? Because you could be the most successful person in the world, and when anxiety hits, it's really tough, right? Whether your anxiety is for 5 minutes or your anxiety is so bad because you're in this stressful situation in a job, in a relationship, or whatever it is, and anxiety passes, right? But in that moment when you are anxious, right, it feels like it's the end of the world, right? But there are some real good steps to being cognizant. Okay, I am experiencing anxiety, but it will pass. Okay, and when it does pass, let me pay attention to what I did to transition from feeling that anxiety towards, realizing it's okay and I'm going out to dinner with my family,
Right. And it sounds like through this process, one of those key things that's helped you so much is the journaling that you did.
Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, I think it's something that people just don't do enough of, because if you look at it, by journaling, you're able to figure out what were the triggers, what worked, what helped you to relax, all of it, versus how most people go through their day, like they're getting anxious, they pop a pill.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think with everything, even in mental health, the problem is, the pills are a Band-Aid, and but that's been around for so long that people see it as the norm, right? It's what needs to be done, and the medicine will get me better, or I'll figure out a way sometime, somewhere, and the reality is that if you keep that mindset, right, you're going to be in the same position, right, because you're not being able to see what you're doing and learn, like I said, from the good and bad, and then apply it to the next day, right? When you are able to do that through journaling or whatever makes you, or allows you to be organized in your life, it allows you to make progress and understand what you're going through.
Oh, it does, because if you think about the system the way it's designed, how many people are in it for a long term? But if you think, let's just look at a lot of the traditional treatment. If people are only taking pills, they're never addressing what's actually the cause of it. So they're staying on these pills long term. They're constantly having to go back to the same doctor over and over for a new prescription. So for the doctor, it's a great business model. They have a set client base that keeps coming back for more.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
for the consumer, the patient, it doesn't help them move past what's causing the troubles.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think. I think that Yeah, I think that it's really somewhat of a broken system, and I think that you know it really needs to change, because you have to look at you know uh, what leads to people's success, but more importantly, how people become good at things, right? And this is what I talk about in my treatment plan: is that medicine helps correct the chemistry in the brain, right? To provide you stability, right? But the idea is, if you create the stability, right? Now, what are you going to do with this stability, right? And a lot of times people feel that stability, right? But they never build up from that, right? So they go back and forth, right? And how our brains are set up, right? Our brains are always evolving, right? And so, like I always say, how do you become good at anything, right? It's just thousands of hours of practicing something, and these skills, become muscle memory, right? So, for example, like you'll jump on a podcast, and you don't really have to think about how you're going to ask someone a question, right? Over time, it just becomes muscle memory, right? Because you've practiced it over and over and over. And so that's what I try to do with people who have OCD and anxiety, right? A lot of them are very, very smart people, right? But it's, their very ability to really reason that kind of gets them in trouble. But what if they could use what they're good at and now try to develop behavioral things that will help them?
Right. Well, it's important to do that, because that's what makes all the difference in the world, is creating that stable foundation. And not only that, this is where I like using a great example. If you think about building a house, if someone has trouble with their foundation, before they can fix anything else in the house, they have to correct the foundation. And that's what a lot of the medications do. It's giving that person that stability so you can start focusing forward on, well, what do you need to be correcting in your life? Because if everything is a trigger and you can't create stability, you can't focus on what do you need to correct in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the part of the system is typically missing is correcting things. It's just, well, how do you feel now? I'm better today. Okay, good. Come back next week, instead of, well, what do you need to move forward?
Exactly. And, that's when I kind of came up with this new way to treat OCD, or this different perspective on it. I realized that people need something that they can use every day, right? And they can build off of, right? And like I said, it goes back to how our brains operate, right? They evolve, right, as we take the initiative to believe in ourselves and constantly trying to look to grow.
It is indeed. That's something that you just absolutely have to do, is look for ways to grow. And I think overall that's where people in life, they are stuck at. It's because there's a lack of growth. You think about how people get comfortable. If you look at, let's just say, as someone goes through life, it's, you look at what you did all the way up through college. Are you excited? Like, I'm going to study this, I'm going to do all these amazing things. And then you get into that first job. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it either makes you or breaks you. That some, they inspire you to do more. And then other jobs, it's like, here's what you're doing, and that's all you're ever going to do. And it squashes, it just absolutely crushes those dreams. And you realize that these four walls of your cubicle is what your life is going to be like now.
Yeah.
And that becomes the root of so many problems.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And, yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like you want to do something you're passionate about. And when I was in high school and in college, I always was like, I would write papers like, the purpose of life is a life of purpose, right? But at that time, I didn't even know what I wanted to do, and, sometimes when you're open to your environment, you listen before you speak, you're able to learn, and, like for me, it kind of came in a different way, but I'm happy I got the opportunity to start my business.
Right. And the key to that is you started it because of the journey you went on. If you didn't go through that journey, would you have started this business?
No way. No way. Not even. It would be not even on my radar. Yeah. That.
Right. And that's the key to it. There's not a set path where someone says to you, oh, by the way, you don't know this yet, but you're starting this business. If you were to go back in time to like freshman year of college, if if you could go back and tell yourself, oh, by the way, this is the business that you're going to be starting, would you have believed it?
No way. Because at the time, um, I was diagnosed with a mood disorder, and there was really no treatment for it because um, really, I wouldn't have thought that, right? Because I couldn't even live in the moment and focus on what was right in front of me, never mind what was going to be down the road. So, um, the biggest thing I feel like anyone who's struggling out there is never give up, right? Because you really do have the potential to get better. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have known that I was gonna do this, but it's that mentality, like to never give up, that put me in the position I'm in.
Oh, exactly. You're never giving up, and that's the key to it. It's knowing there's always a future there. There's always a way, and you look at how many people they give up along that journey, where they figure that, well, I guess this is just how it's supposed to be. Everyone's unhappy. They get a good paying job, so they just go through life, and that's it. Versus, how can you make a difference in the world? How can you impact people's lives with something that happened along your journey?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people go through that, and way I look at it is you have one life, and uh, you know, you're not going to change the world in everything you do, um, you know, but if you can find happiness in what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You'll actually have a meaningful life, and you can help people in all different types of ways.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's something that you just have to do. But the challenge, I think, for most people is finding that catalyst
Hmm.
that reignites their passion, that puts
Yep.
them on the path to make a difference. Just as you had the people in your life that inspired you to do something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, my family has been literally there for me um, from the very beginning. My mom Joanne, my sister Danielle, my dad Ron, and all my friends. Um, they really were there for me, and they were there for me when I felt hopeless. And um, yeah, and their support and my ability to never give up kind of put me in the position I'm in now. So
And you see, that shows something that's a key ingredient when you're looking at it. It's having that type of support system. Because you look at the people out there, if they're surrounded nothing by negativity, it doesn't matter how much medication someone's taking. Part of that treatment has to be creating that support network that's going to help lift you up instead
exactly,
of pull you down.
exactly, yeah, yep,
But it's a necessity that so many people forget about. That you look at the number of success stories out there, you won't find a single one that someone says, I did it all by myself. There's no team members, it's just me.
yeah, and yeah, that's really never the case. I think there are people like that. Um, like you think people that have became really successful, that grew up in a difficult environment, like the Oprah Winfrey's of the world, right? They had nothing, right? And they had the willpower to do what they did, right? But not everyone honestly has, um, the mental toughness, like initially to get themselves out. They need support, right? We're all human beings. We all go through things, and I think that's why a support system so vital.
It is. And when you're looking at examples like the Oprahs of the world of people who had to pull themselves out, it comes down to a certain level of drive that each person has, that some people have more than others. But at the end of the day, that only gets you so far. It pushes you to a certain point. And then that's where that network of people come into play. That if you think about her interviewing skills and the connections, everything that built up, that was because of being connected to so many different people. And that's what really propelled her career to where it is today. And you look at the people out there where they give up hope is, they might have pushed through, but they forgot that one ingredient, and that's to develop that new network of people. Because so many times we get focused in on, but these people, they're my family, I can't let them go. If your family and friends are a toxic cesspool that's just dragging you down, you have to do something about it. Otherwise, you're never going to move away from it.
That's so true. I mean, and so when I met Ben, right, it was actually crazy. So I ended up becoming my business partner, and I actually drove up to Maine to see his dad. We had dinner, and so then he introduced me to the Forbes community. So I went to the Forbes community, and what I realized was there are a lot of other people who go through a similar journey, right? And especially at the Forbes event, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, right, that have the drive, have the passion, right? And being able to be in that network allowed me to see that if you surround yourself by like people that are positive and making strides, it's contagious, you know. And for me, being able to meet all these very successful people, realize that we all have a lot similar in common. So having a very supportive family, but also surrounding yourself by people that will kind of shape your own mentality is huge too.
It is. You have to have that, because your mentality is what's going to drive you. Because at the beginning and end of every day, it's just you. It's your thoughts. And we wake up making that choice. Am I going to do whatever it takes to get that much further ahead today than where I was yesterday? Or will I make an excuse why I'm not able to?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. When I was in the hospital, there was a doctor, right? And we've had meetings going back and forth, talking about my book and everything. And he really sees people for who they are. They're not defined by the disorder. And he said something really interesting to the group that I was in. He said, you know, our world is we always talk about superheroes, you know, who are superheroes, you know? And he said to me, to us, right, there's probably like 12 of us, he said, I just want to let you know you are my superheroes, right? Because every day you get up, right? You don't know what to expect, right? But every day you get up and every day you try. And that to me was like huge. And the biggest lesson I learned from that is that if you never give up, if you get out of bed, right, that in itself is the first step, right? So just getting out of bed, right, and just taking things as they come.
It's so powerful that you say that, because you have to make that choice. Because every day it's a new opportunity to make a difference. You think about how many times, like on a Monday morning, ironically, people have that mentality, oh, today's just going to suck. And they don't realize that thought, it sets the intention and the tone of the day, and then ultimately it sets the tone of the week. But think about what happens. How many people will say, Monday, oh, this sucks. And Tuesday's like, all right, it's a little bit better. Then Wednesday's like, yay, it's hump day. Thursday, like, oh, the weekend's almost here. And Friday, they're celebrating. And then, Saturday and Sunday, they're having a blast. They're doing all those fun things. And then Sunday night comes along, like, oh, crap, Monday's almost here again. And the cycle begins all over.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the biggest thing to realize is that's normal, you know. I mean, I work in construction during the day, and I do this business that I've been developing. But I have that same mentality a lot of times. When I go in the morning in construction, as the days go by through the week, I kind of have that mentality. Thankfully, on my job, I work on the Longfellow Bridge, which is in Boston. We have a great crew of guys. Everyone I work with are great, so it makes the week go by quick. But it's very easy to get into that mentality, right? Because, yeah, you may be making pretty good money, but it's tough, because not every day you're going to have that spark of passion, and, that's why I think it's just good to take one day at a time.
Exactly. That's all you can do. You just can't say, I'm taking this whole week at once. Well, Thursday's not here yet, so how about focusing on today?
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And it's what makes life so valuable, because when you cherish each moment, you start looking at it differently. How can you live it to its fullest to maximize its impact on you versus it just disappearing in a blink of an eye? Like, where did it go? Well, you didn't live it. You're just kind of participating, which is a difference.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So as we begin wrapping things up, what's one thing that you would love people to know about your book and something they could really take as an actionable step from it?
I think what my book does is it shows that all those who have OCD and anxiety are not alone, I mean, that's the first thing. And I think what the book really will do is, obviously, it will show you the skills, certain skills. It will show you a very logical way to be on the road to recovery. But the biggest thing I think the book offers is an ability for people to realize they are their own best therapists. If they believe in themselves, right, and they take one day at a time and they learn from it each and every day, they will get better, And I'm hoping that my story and my book can inspire other people, And if they take one thing from my book, they don't have to use my whole approach, If they take one thing from it, it's all worth it.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming into the podcast today. And how can people learn more about your book and more about the work that you're doing?
Okay, yeah. Ben and I, we've started the company and we created a website. It's DumontOCDhelp.com, and that's our main website. And we have the book coming out, and people can pre-order the book. The website is theocdbook.com, and so people can go on theocdbook.com and they can fill out their name and email. It will go directly to my email, and we use that to have their email, right? And we don't charge people until we have the book completely ready. But people can pre-order it, so we have them, so we can contact. We have their emails. We can contact them, so they can go to theocdbook.com. Right, just put in their name and email. It will come to me. I'll make note of it, and people can get the book pretty soon.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, once again, I want to thank you for coming to the podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom about helping people overcoming anxiety and OCD so they can start living their life to their fullest.
All right. Thank you, Byron. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.